Hello, my name's Colin. I'm a technical advisor with the partners team here at Vertigis, and I'm going to show you how to set up your station series in Geocortex Inline. Let's take a look. The stationing feature in Geocortex Inline allows you to define station measures alongside a centerline's measure values. So the difference between a centerline measure value and stationing is that a measure value for a centerline is, of course, the measure from the beginning of the centerline, namely 0, to the end of the centerline. So say 10,000. Stationing allows you to break up that centerline into relative segments or stations. In the oil and gas industry, this is typically 100 feet stations or segments, but it can be other things or distances depending on the implementation. Stationing is very common, as I mentioned, in oil and gas pipelines, but it can also be applied equally well to, for example, roads and highways, where, for example, you have a state log and a county log. So a state log on one centerline road will be the state measures for that particular road. But that road will also be going through a county, and there would be a county log, which would be the measures for the county. So an application of this would be to use the centerline measure, use the state logs for the centerline measure, and then the county log for the stationing. So in this case, we're going to be looking at a pipeline example. This is a UPDM service that we're using, and I've already started a inline view. And setting up staging is pretty straightforward. I've already set up the map options. You can see that we also have stationing options available now. So we can jump in there and toggle the use station values on. There's three options for setting up your stationing. You can import the station options from another inline view. You can use an alternative map service. So that's if your station values are actually stored in a different map service than your centerline linear reference data. This case, we are going to be using the third option, which is when the centerline and station layers are in the same service. So what we do is we select the layer that represents our our station series, and this is the aptly named in this service, at least, the station series network. Now, right away, it selects a unique ID field as the object ID. This can be whatever you need it to be. For example, if you have a good or some other unique ID for your station series, you can do that. But in this case, we're going to stick with the default option, which is object ID. Moving down here, what we want to do is we want to set up the association between the station network layer and the centerline layer, which in this case is done on the route_GUID. Then what we want to do is we want to go through and start setting up our different measure and station fields. So we'll set the begin measure field and measure field, begin station field, and end station field. Okay. The final field that's required is a segment name field, and this is what identifies the particular segment for that station. In this case, we're going to use the line name. We have an optional field here, which is a series order field, and this isn't required, but as you will see in the example I'm going to show in a moment, it's useful when, for example, the line name is shared amongst all your different station series, and it's very hard to differentiate the different series by simply the name. So if you can order them somehow, that's very useful. So what we're going to use here is the order ID field. Again, this is an optional field, not entirely necessary, but kind of handy. Click apply. So now you've set up stationing on your view. You're all ready to go. But there are a few other options that you can set up in the inline view prior to launching it. In your viewer settings, you can toggle on show station name on the map. Let's do that. And over here, when you actually configure stationing on your view, what you get is an additional option in the shared band options, underneath the general view options. In this case, it's the x-axis tooltip style. There's measure, station, measure then station, station then measure, or none. In this case, we're going to use measure then station. Okay, and we're all ready to go. So let's launch our inline view in the sandbox and take a look. Okay, so here we're having a look at the inline in action. The interface doesn't really change much right away. You'll notice there's this toggle button. I'll get into that in a second. But you select your route the same way you usually do. In this case, I know the one I'm looking for, so I'm going to go for the Middle Valley, London route. And then I'm going to select a measure. We're going to start it at around 62,000 and finish up at almost 200,000. Okay, so here we have our area of interest. You notice right away as I mouse over the center line on the map, we not only do we have the measure value, which is at the top, but we also have the station value below. So that's one of the new features. In addition, we also have the name of the station series presented on the map as well. And that was an option that we set up in our view. So right away, that's when you're working with the map. You'll also notice down on the view, similarly, we have the measure value as well as the station value being presented. So it's easier for you to identify where you are on the map by both measure or station. We can toggle the segment and stationing options here. So in this case, we can define the start segment and end segment. This is important because a lot of times what you're doing with stations is you're interested in a measure or an area of interest which traverses one or more stations. So you can basically define which actual segment you're interested in and then narrow down to the station value within that segment. So in this case, I'll just clear this one. Now, in our case, and this is what I was talking about earlier, all the series names are the same, Middle Valley, London. Very difficult to figure out which is which. But what we've done is we've added some additional attribution, namely we've got the begin and end stationing, as well as that order field. This comes in handy. So we've got it ordered 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know where we are within those segments. So we can go ahead and select the station. Let's see. Let's do this one right here and do the stationing of, let's see, 17,000. There you go. The other option is with tooltips, or excuse me, with points of interest. You can use the station value instead of just the measure for locating it. So if we pop up in a form, you can see we can use stationing as well as measures and coordinates when we want to add a point of interest. So that's the stationing feature as it's now presented in Geocortex Inline. It's an easy feature to configure and is very useful if you require the use of your stationing measures in conjunction with your centerline measures when querying or otherwise searching for features and attribution within your inline view.